Attention outdoorsmen, Washington Arms Collectors holds a series of monthly gun shows throughout the year at the Evergreen State Fairgrounds in Monroe, as well as the Puyallup Fairgrounds. Each show features hundreds of tables of guns, gear, knives, and accessories for outdoor enthusiasts. Washington Arms Collectors is a membership organization and restrictions apply to the possession and sales of firearms at all shows. So for more information and a full schedule of upcoming shows in your neck of the woods, go to WashingtonArmsCollectors.org. That's WashingtonArmsCollectors.org.
Why go to all the trouble of experiencing the great outdoors for yourself when you can listen to a few Northwest outdoor experts flap their gums about it? This is the Outdoor Line with Tom Nelson and Rob Ensley on 710 ESPN Seattle. Brought to you by Master Marine, Lowrance Electronics, Sportco Outdoor Emporium, Bayside Marine, Evinrude, Cannon Downriggers, and Truck Vault.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Line, 710 ESPN Seattle. This is going to be a very challenging segment. This is hour two. You see, we got on air a little bit early, and our good buddy Chef Patrick has joined us with Dungeness crab biscuits and gravy.
What? Oh,
this
my
is
goodness.
Absolutely phenomenal. Welcome, Patrick, and thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for coming in, man.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. I told Rob some time ago over text that I'd bring in some food one of these days.
Oh, man, I tell
and
you
that was
what.
quite a while ago. I just kind of, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden, our good friend Derek Anderson was going to join us this morning, and he's been sleeping in. And look who shows up. So this is Dungeness crab gravy.
Yes. This is phenomenal.
This is ridiculous.
Oh,
now, we
my
were
goodness.
talking back in the control room about cooking salmon, too. And you've got just an incredibly easy recipe that produces some of the finest salmon you ever want to eat.
Yeah, it's become my go-to recipe for myself when I'm at home, just want a quick dinner. And it's great because it just requires salt, pepper, butter, and salmon. Mm-hmm. And it's one of my favorites. It's when you pan-sear the salmon with a nice, the skin is crispy. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a cracker. So you do a skin-on piece of salmon.
Sure.
Salt and pepper both sides. You get a nonstick or a well-seasoned cast iron pan and put a tablespoon or so of butter in that. And put it on like a medium-low heat. You think you want crispy skin. Most people think high heat.
Sure.
On this one, you want a lower heat. And you put it skin side down and just let it slowly cook that excess fat out of the skin. It takes about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on your heat. And what you want to look for is you want the salmon mostly done before you even touch it, turn it over. It's just leave it in the pan. You'll see that it start to cook up the sides.
It curls up a little bit.
Curls up a little bit.
Yep.
And what you do is you just flip it over when it's almost there and pull it off the heat right away.
Flip it over maybe a minute on the meat side, right? Just to get that nice flavor on there with your salt and pepper.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I'll pull it off the heat. If you have a cast iron pan or if you have an electric stove that has residual heat, you can give it a minute on that. But just let it sit in the pan for like 4 minutes. Just let the heat from the pan finish it off. That will give you a nice. It'll be done inside, but still nice and moist. And when you flip it over, the skin will still be a little bit soft, but as it sits there, it'll crisp up, and you will get like a cracker consistency that's on the skin. It's absolutely fabulous.
Now, one of the things that you want to do with salmon, and a lot of folks ruin salmon by overcooking it.
Yes.
You want to pull it off when it's medium rare. How do folks tell if the fish is medium rare without taking a fork and digging down into it and ruining that piece of salmon? How do you tell, man?
Well, by touch is the best way, and it's a little bit of trial and error, So if you're out there catching salmon, try a piece, touch it, go through, and then go ahead and break it open when you think it's about right. And if you're wrong, then you sort of learn. It's cooking is an experience.
It's a feel.
Yeah,
it is. And the way I like to stop the cook on the salmon is when it does start to flake, when each one of those individual muscles it breaks apart cleanly.
That's a term used in professional kitchens a lot for cooking fish. You're looking for the flake, the point where it just starts to break apart along its natural fat lines, and that's the perfect cook on most fish.
Now, what about sauces? Do you do anything with your salmon? We were talking about an apple reduction or something back there.
This is something. Wow. It's become a condiment that I keep on my counter all the time. Mm-hmm. Take a half a gallon of fresh apple cider, the good stuff like you from the farmer's market. Put it on the stove and just boil it down, not too high, medium heat. Mm-hmm. Cook it down to 1 cup, half a gallon down to 1 cup. Mm-hmm. Keep an eye on it because as it gets closer, it'll burn quickly, but it'll be the consistency of honey. and you can keep it at room temperature. It's shelf stable, and just drizzle a little bit of that over salmon. If you want something a little richer, put a little bit of that reduction in a pan with some heavy cream. Cook it for like 1 minute, and serve that with salmon it's.
Well, you
really
can mix
good.
a little bourbon in with that too, Nelson. That makes sense.
Oh my goodness.
I do put that in cocktails as well from time to time.
Yeah.
We're talking with Chef Patrick at Green City Catering, and if I'm quiet, it's just because I just finished the crab gravy, Dungeness crab biscuits and gravy. Tell us a little bit about that. Where obviously Puget Sound. When the tide is out, the table's set, right?
Oh, exactly.
But tell us a little bit about and actually tell us about Green City Catering and your blog, Bait the Plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's when I first moved here and started meeting some of the local anglers, especially the first several I met, they would be catching these beautiful salmon, and every single fish would go into the hot smoker. Now, and I love hot smoked salmon.
I hear you.
But there's so many things you can do.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can compare what you can catch yourself and handle yourself and bleed right away.
There's no way.
There's
There's
to
no way.
any commercial, anything.
right.
And at my blog, I also say that there's a certain sense of smug self-satisfaction that adds to the flavor. So as I'm learning my way around fishing out here, I figured it's kind of like giving back a little bit.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
I have a lot to learn about how catching fish out here. You guys have been a great help with that. But I thought I can teach these guys, here's something else you can do with your catch.
Well, thank you. And the other thing I want to learn about is these lingcod wonton. Am I getting that right?
No, it was spot prawn pot stickers.
There you go.
Okay. There was another
Spot
lingcod thing
prawn
in there
pot
somewhere.
stick.
But
Yeah. I've done lingcod and chips. I've done olive oil poached lingcod. This is all on baittoplate.com.
yeah.
But yeah, that's also really easy because pot sticker dough is flour and water and a little salt, and that's it. And it's surprisingly easy to do. And again, spot prawns are a great local delicacy, and I try to find anything I can do with them that they can add.
Oh,
to it.
absolutely. Yeah. What a great way to cook them. If we can just get them to that. Usually we eat them the second they're done. We're chowing on them. Little garlic, little butter, raw. They work great. But gosh, in a wonton, that's just Especially if you got them in the freezer for a little while. A couple months, if they last that long. What a great way
if you can keep them around that long.
Yeah, they usually don't last that long, but what a great way to whip them up. So now all this stuff is on your blog, baittoplate.com.
Right. I haven't written up the Dungeness crab gravy yet, but I will soon. I imagine
this
people
is so
will be
good,
interested.
I'm telling you. Thank you so much for bringing that in, too, by the way. That's
absolutely my pleasure.
Tremendous.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen very often. But growing up around here, eating seafood literally my whole life, that is really, really something special. So I tell you what, if you want to jump on board and maybe we can show you a dirty trick or two about fishing, because I tend to get I've got one or two recipes that I've absolutely got down cold. I smoke fish the same way every time, and I've kind of barbecue salmon the same way every time, and kind of got a couple go-to recipes for halibut and lingcod, But the stuff you do is so inventive and brings a variety to it that I'd really hadn't considered. You opened up my eyes to kind of a whole new world out here. So how did you end up out here, Patrick? You're from the East Coast. You're getting your start out there in the New York area?
Yeah, it was a whim. I grew up and lived up and down the East Coast, and I was kind of a rambling person. I wanted to come to the West Coast, and I've been living in New York City for a while. And when you live in New York City, just getting away from the metro area is hours.
I hear you.
And I wanted to live somewhere vibrant and city, but I also wanted to be able to get to where there's some water and there's some mountains and some green. And Seattle was the perfect, solution to that. I love it here. I thought I'd move here for a couple of years and leave again. This is home.
I hear you, man. Oh, wonderful. And how long have you been out here now, Patrick?
It's been 15 years.
No kidding.
I'm glad you're here, man. Otherwise, we wouldn't be eating this.
Boy,
this is that what, Nelson?
Yeah.
Man,
oh, it's phenomenal.
that's crazy.
Absolutely phenomenal.
That's actually got some of the stock I made from spot prawns. A lot of the guys out here, they catch the spot prawns, they throw their heads away right away. I'm shocked because there's so much flavor to be taken from those heads for making a broth. And some of it goes into that gravy.
Oh, no kidding. So you boil the heads.
Yes.
And get
slow simmer with some vegetables. Some
Nelson
onions,
usually
celery.
eats the head, so he just eats the whole thing.
No, I'm a head popper.
Yeah.
And every time I throw one of those, I go, I wonder if you could use that for bait. But I bet you could. There's also some bait sense that you could derive from that as well.
Yeah, as a chef, it's like if you can get whole prawns with heads on, it's something you really, really want. And when I found out guys out here catch these beautiful fresh prawns and throwing a lot of flavor away, I was surprised.
So what are we throwing away from our salmon that we shouldn't be throwing away?
A lot of guys don't scrape the bones. take a spoon, like after you fillet, take a spoon down the spine.
Down the backbone, sure.
Yes, and you can get, depending on how good you are with a knife, you can get enough meat for a couple good salmon cakes out of that. Or a gravy like this also goes good on biscuits. The same recipe will work good with salmon.
I usually let the crab pick the salmon backbones clean.
Well, you know what? A friend of mine came up to Alaska a couple years ago, and we're filleting everything out, and the carcasses are going in the drink. He's like, "What are you doing? Give me one of those." So he takes a whole king salmon carcass, seasons it all up with some olive oil and a bunch of seasoning, throws it on the barbecue. And honestly, there was enough there for us. It was almost dinner. There was enough salmon left on there. It was about a 25-pound king salmon. And we just picked it as a great hors d'oeuvre, kind of a pre-funk kind of deal. We had some drinks and had that on the barbecue. And you're right, there was plenty of meat left on that thing. And gosh, if you like salmon cakes, there's a bunch of meat there too for that. So
yeah, it's just too good to throw away. And I still keep the bones for crab bait and the heads for crab bait, but
this was the first year that I actually took a Chinook, cut a nice chunk off of it and sashimi'd it and ate it raw right on the boat with some wasabi and soy. And it was just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you get to the point where you're eating raw salmon chilled, on board the boat. But
you've lost it, Nelson.
I have, completely. But
I'm with Tom on this.
But it's phenomenal. It is. Yes. It's just wonderful.
No, you have no idea what salmon means to him. This is now this just finishes him off.
Patrick.
I'll
admit. I mean, I grew up eating salmon. All right. Absolutely. Very little beef, very little chicken, right? It was all salmon because we caught it, we canned it, we froze it, we did, and as much as I've eaten it, I never grow tired of it, and just, I mean, seriously, I could eat it every day for just about every meal, and I never get sick of it.
I've had to sort of indoctrinate my family to it because I didn't like salmon before I moved out here. Because salmon on the East Coast is literally a different animal.
Oh, sure.
And I came out here and tried the salmon out here. It's like, oh, whoa, this is a whole different league of delicious that I hadn't encountered before.
Well, and you raise an excellent point in that fish that you catch yourself and you handle yourself, you can't possibly get it fresher than the stuff you catch yourself. And even the process of freezing fish changes its texture and its flavor fundamentally.
Right. Also, the commercial guys just don't have the time to handle it the way we can. We can treat each fish like it's precious, which is what an angler can do.
Yeah, without question. All right, we'll tell you what, we got to pop out for a quick break. We have the Northwest Outdoor Report coming up next, but stay with us because you're going to get a kick out of our guest that we've got in the 625 segment, Phil Perrone. He's a transplant from the East Coast too, and he's the founder of Pro-Cure Baits. We're looking forward to that. But stay tuned. We're right back with a critically acclaimed, award-winning Northwest Outdoor Report right here on the Outdoor Line at 710 ESPN Seattle.
The Northwest Outdoor Report, also known as Redneck Sports Center, is brought to you by Truck Vault, the leader in secure vehicle storage.
A cattle rancher in Stevens County just signed up for a test program that allows him to access the GPS data of collared wolves in the vicinity of their cattle herds. Once the GPS data of collared wolves is downloaded, ranchers send a hired range rider out to patrol the area and let the wolves know that they're being watched. This non-lethal technique has been successful for cattle ranchers in Montana and Alberta in protecting their herds from wolves, and ranchers here in Washington, well, they're hoping for the same results. So far, the Dawson Family Ranch in northeastern Washington has returned 100% of their cattle from the summer grazing grounds, and while it's early, the program looks like it could be successful. The only drawback to this program is that it costs between $15,000 and $20,000 to hire a range rider. Last year, WDFW received over 12,000 emails after they decided to remove the entire wedge pack that was feeding on cattle in northeastern Washington.
Chico Creek under siege with chum salmon. John Hansen at Defiance Marine in Bremerton says the chum salmon are snapping anchovies at Chico Creek near Silverdale. The best way to target chums in the tidewater at Chico is with a whole anchovy under a float. Hansen says to set the anchovy anywhere from 3 to 5 feet under the float, and cruising chums are sure to bite it. The incoming tide is proving the best action, and both boat and bank anglers have been catching plenty of fish.
Matt McCullough from Tyee Charters in Kingston is reporting good blackmouth fishing in the southern portion of Area 10 around Skiff Point, Yomalt, and Tyee Shoals. McCullough says he's had blackmouth all the way up to 29 inches already, and he's seen a lot of undersized fish in the 18 to 21 inch range. He said you're willing to weed through some of those undersized blackmouth, though. There's plenty of keeper-sized fish mixed in. His go-to setup so far has been a hot spot flash with a 3.5-inch Kingfisher light spoon and either Irish cream or Irish flag. Matt says the fish that he's caught so far have been eating red label-sized herring, and he expects Area 10 to fish well all the way through the month of January.
Big Steelhead Seminar at Three Rivers Marine. Don't miss the Big Steelhead Seminar at Three Rivers Marine in Woodinville on December 7th. Northwest steelheading experts, headlined by famed Forks guide Bob Ball, will be getting seminars on where to go and how to catch trophy steelhead. There'll be free barbecue at Three Rivers Marine will have plenty of raffle prizes on hand for attendees. Seminars start at 10 o'clock, and anglers should call Three Rivers Marine ahead of time to RSVP for the event.
Potholes waterfowl action is starting to heat up. Mike Meisberg at Mardon Resort on Potholes Reservoir is reporting good duck hunting on the lake on days when there's no fog. The duck taxi had 3 groups of hunters on the lake yesterday, and they all had great shooting. Meisberg says the northern migration has just started, and they're seeing more and more mallards and pintails every day. The goose hunting on both the lake and in the fields has also been excellent, and that should only improve with the cold weather that's forecast for this next week over in eastern Washington. As a bonus, Meisberg said there's also a 9-pound walleye caught off the dock a couple nights ago, and while it's a little early for walleye, there's at least a few of them around to catch.
Clam dig scheduled for this weekend. There's no shortage of razor clams on the Washington coast this winter. WDFW just announced yet another dig on the coast that started yesterday and will go through Wednesday. Long Beach, Twin Harbors, Moke Rocks, and Copalis beaches were open yesterday and again today. Long Beach, Twin Harbors, and Moke Rocks will be open tomorrow. Then Twin Harbors near Westport will remain open through Wednesday. The digs are all on evening tides, and diggers will need lanterns and rain gear as it's supposed to be a wet and windy one there over the weekend.
This Redneck Sports Center has been brought to you by the great folks at Truck Vault in Cedro Woolley. Check out your next secure vehicle storage system at truckvault.com.
What do you think there, Tom? If you're going to go bank fishing right now, we just got a text from someone in Gig Harbor. I want to do some river fishing, bank fishing. Where would I go? Where would you go? Down on the south end.
Down on the south
Kind
end?
of out of your comfort zone down there, but where would you go?
Blue Creek.
Blue Creek.
Blue Creek down on the Cowlitz.
Looking for an early steelhead?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Why not, man?
I'd be hitting the Satsip or the Hump Tulips up around Stevens Creek Hatchery. And actually, I'd probably go to the Hump Tulips around Stevens Creek. We got some rain coming here. Those fish are going to be charging right up there. And there's actually quite a few coho stacked up around the hatchery there as well right now.
I'm telling you what, you could drive right up to the Blue Creek parking lot right there on the Cowlitz and fish the crack pipe, man. They're right below that hatchery outlet right there. I promise you're going to catch something there. Without question.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got the Nelson guarantee that
there
you're
you
going
go.
to catch a fish at Blue
There
Creek.
you go. And you won't be alone. You're not going to go there and find solitude.
I'm going to the Satsip or the Hump Tulips. And then we got some guys set up in an undisclosed location in the layout blinds right now, waiting for those feet down shots. Thanks for the show, guys, on this windy morning. We've got some duck hunters out in the field there this morning. Boy, it's a pretty good morning for duck hunting. Actually, got some rain, a little bit of wind. What's the forecast, Nelson? You said 15 to 25 or something like that?
Admiralty Inlet, you got gale warnings till 7 o'clock today. Small craft advisories today. Northwest, I just updated the forecast. 25 to 35.
Perfect.
50. It is.
That's just the way we like it there for duck hunting.
Yeah. Now we're joined this morning by Chef Patrick of Bait, the number2plate.com. Fed us some phenomenal crab gravy and biscuits. Just absolutely, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect.
Just liked it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, oh man. Well, thanks for having us in here. And I tell you what, we're gonna have to. This is kind of cool because you are an East Coast transplant, and our next guest, Phil Perrone, is too. If you guys have ever used a bait cure here in the Pacific Northwest, I guarantee at some point you have used ProCure Bait. Phil Perrone, the founder of ProCure, joining us next here in the Outdoor Line at 710 ESPN Seattle.
From the Pacific Ocean coast to your ears, this is the Outdoor Line on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Line. I'm Tom Nelson. That's Rob Ensley. Chef Patrick Fagan has joined us this morning. Matt Nelson running the board in there. And on the phone, guy I've admired a long time, and boy, I tell you what, just an absolute staple of Northwest fishing has been ProCure Bait Scents for over 4 decades, and nothing less than the founder of ProCure. Phil Perrone joins us now. Good morning, Phil, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, Tom, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, and I tell you what, my partner Rob Ensley sitting next to me here, he's used your stuff in his charter operation in Southeast Alaska a long time. It's funny because a friend of ours, Patrick Fagan, Chef Patrick, has walked in the studio kind of unexpectedly today. He's an East Coast transplant as well. Tell us a little bit about your background, Phil, and how you ended up out here on the West Coast.
Well, I think it's one of the things that benefits ProCure. I've been really involved in the fishing industry my whole life. At 14, I started working on charter boats out of Barnegat Lake, New Jersey as a deckhand, and I did that for 11 years as I paid my way through college. And Then I went in the Catskills, and I taught fly fishing and fly tying, wrote a couple of books on fly fishing, fly tying, and then eventually moved the fly business to the West Coast and started hanging out with a lot of river guides who fly fished in the summertime and then can eventually fish with bait in the wintertime when the water, changed. And so I got really lucky. I hooked up with Denny Hanna right away. He passed away, but one of the legendary Oregon guides. And got to fish smallmouth bass on the John Day for a couple of years, and went up to Alaska and guided the Ashik system. And also he was one of the top Chinook fishermen, way ahead of his time. And we started playing around, I think, in 1977 or 78 with the sulfite cures, and that eventually led to the formation or the product, which was the original ProCure egg cure. So I've been around it my whole life. We're very fortunate. We've had a lot of great fishermen coming down the pike. A doctor who's an MD doctor, a GP up in Canada, and also a very serious fly fisherman, has about 15 more degrees than a thermometer. And he turned me on to the Brine and Bite formula, the original formula, and we improved it. And we've had the Brine and Bite formula on the market, I think, since about 1985, 87 rather. And we talked about that the other day.
We did.
If you're brine and herring, that's the way to go.
Well, I tell you what, a lot of people struggle with how to prepare herring. Obviously, it starts off with having good quality herring, but
there's no fix for bad.
If you have the right brine, you can sometimes salvage some bait that maybe is a little borderline, but the firmness,
right?
Yeah, the firmness that you can get from this Brine and Bite formula will absolutely turn a herring into a dill pickle. It will stay on your hook. But more than that, Phil, you've added some amino acids and some other things to this cure that actually are bite enhancers. Give us a little insight into the background formula of this.
Well, the first thing I realized is, like on Brine and Bite, is there's a lot of people out there a whole lot smarter than me. So what I did was went to my doctor friend up in Canada, and we started researching all the amino acids that were used to get hatchery fish to feed. A salmon and a seal is a pretty solitary creature once they start to get past their little tiny stage, and they like their own rock and whatever. So when you throw them in a concrete pen with 500,000 other smolts, they get depressed, they get and they go into a funk, and they don't eat, and they get weak, they starve, and they get diseased, and they die. So they had to figure out a way to get these fish to feed under stress conditions, and they developed a series of amino acids that actually trigger an impulse in the fish's brain to feed. They use the same stuff in raising chickens and pigs. There's amino acids that will trigger an impulse in an animal's brain to feed. I gotta eat. So and there's also amino acids that will boost up the flavor of an item. And then there's amino acids that are necessary for its growth development. And I don't really worry about, we're not making fish food, so I don't worry about growth development. But if I can make that herring or that anchovy or that piece of bait smell better than that fish has ever smelled the bait before, I got his interest. And when he gets close enough and those amino acids start to get into his olfactory receptors, it's going to trigger an impulse of him to feed. So we've got the best smelling herring, the best tasting herring, and then we've got, an impulse that says, I got to eat that herring, and good things happen.
Well, there's a lot to be said for that. A lot of these salmon will come up and chase a herring or chase a hoochie or chase whatever lure they're coming after for a long time. And there's plenty of videos out there of these fish just following a lure forever, and they get their nose right up in there, and you can tell they're trying to get a whiff of that. Is that thing real? And if you got a scent like you're talking about that triggers that impulse, that's going to make your bait a lot more effective. Now, I want to switch gears over a little bit to your egg cures, Phil. You've got the Wizard egg cure, which I used a ton of that stuff when I was a kid. And then you've got the Last Supper egg cure. Can you talk about your egg curing formulas and kind of what the difference is between all of them?
We've got about 5 or 6 different egg cure formulas because it's gotten to the point, where 20, 25 years ago, if you had a good egg cure with a sand shrimp, you couldn't miss. But it's so competitive now. There's so many good anglers out there, and it seems like based on water temperature, the chemical compositions these fish want to feed on, more so salmon. I mean, I joke around. I tell people that salmon are chemical junkies. They like chemicals. And if they were people, they'd all be in treatment. So having the different formulas, on some rivers, the Wizard works a lot better than, let's say, the original ProCure, or at times in the season, in Oregon, when we have our spring Chinook, different water temperatures and water flows, one cure will work better than the others. One of the unique things about the Last Supper egg cure is there's a coastal formula and then an inland formula, and it's a little bit confusing because the coastal formula does not mean you should use it all the time at the coast. The coastal formula is for really fresh fish. When you have a pot of fish that's on a coastal river that's just shot in from the ocean, what they're trying to do is detune their bodies of salt and get acclimated to fresh. So that particular formula has more chemicals but less salt. But if the fish have been in a coastal river for a couple of weeks, use the inland formula because it's more of what they're looking for, a little bit more salt. They want to get the salt back in their body again because they all crave salt. And it's got a little bit more chemical kick to it. But what's unique about Last Supper is if you're bobber fishing at the coast and you want a really wet egg, and then you move out of that bobber situation into let's say a riffle or part of the stream where there's current, or you want to run some eggs off a diver. If you use a really wet egg under normal curing conditions, that egg will just blow off that hook. You'll have a little piece of pink snot in about 30 seconds. with Last Supper, what's very unique about it is once you set it it has to go through a freeze phase. You have to take your eggs after they're cured and then freeze them for at least 24 hours. And something magical happens with eggs. It's a really wet, juicy egg that stays on the hook for a long time. And there's no way this wet piece of, bobber egg is going to stay on the hook, and we can run them in divers up at the garbage hole on Willamette in heavy current. Roaring current, where you're really on your trolling motor, just a hold. And those eggs, 30 minutes later, look like you just put them on the hook, and they milk the whole time.
We're talking with Phil Perrone of ProCure this morning. A legend in the bait curing business. But you have taken a lot of your hard-earned knowledge, Phil, that you've accumulated over the 4 decades that ProCure has been in existence, and you've put out a series of DVDs. There's a comprehensive egg curing video. My favorite is your successful plug cutting technique video. Tell us a little bit about these DVDs and what our listeners could learn from spending a little time playing these on their TVs at home.
Well, the egg curing DVD, I'm on there briefly. We went to quite a few good egg fishermen, good guides, and said, which cures do you use? And then depending on the different cures, we have Terry Seamster, who developed the Last Supper on that. They got Jesse Zalonis on the Wizard Egg Cure, and different people as they go through explain how they do their eggs differently, which is great. Particularly if you're a novice to mid-level guy, there's a lot in that DVD that will help you out. I really believe it's a good one, but the one I'm not blowing my own horn, but it was such an effort on the plug cut DVD. I see so many guys struggle, and mostly it's tail flop and not keeping baits on the hook and understanding what makes tail flop happen. And the DVD we did, I think I talked about it the other day. We were 3/4 of almost more than that, pretty much done with it. And all of a sudden I realized, it's like when you watch a guy fly tying, the camera's facing him, but you have to reverse everything else. So I realized the best way to show people how to rig herring and cut herring and tie hooks and stuff would be the way they saw it with their own eyes. So we threw all the DVD stuff away. And then we basically set the camera up right over my shoulder. So basically what you're seeing is exactly how you'd see it with your eyes, not like you're looking at me front on where you have to reverse it to make it work. And I think that makes that DVD incredibly special. And it covers everything. It covers brining, dyeing baits, cutting baits, different rolls, how to get different rolls, hook placement, how to get rid of that hinge effect. And by the hinge effect, what I mean is if you envision a 1 inch or 1.5 inch clear plastic pipe, and your herring spinning in that, spinning like a spinner blade, you do not want the head or the tail out of whack where one of them is touching the outside, the inside of the pipe. You want it spinning just totally inside the pipe without touching. And what causes the tail flop to be, where the head's going in a 1 inch circle and the tail's going in a 4 to 6 or 7 or 8 inch circle is the placement of the hook. And most guys place the hook too deeply into the herring because they're afraid it's going to rip off. And it will rip off. I'm not knocking it, but some of our competitors' cures, I noticed, I play around with everybody's cures. Everybody on the market, I think, I walk in the store with a ProCure jacket on, a ProCure hat. I'm buying brand X and brand Y. I want to see how they work. And I know for a fact you can't get a good herring from some of the other cures that are on the market. You just can't do it. They're soft.
I agree.
And so guys, one of the tricks is, of course, you always want to run your hook through the spine. And I look at a herring head on after I cut it. And if you look at its spine, the spine's 12 o'clock. And to get the tightest rolls, you want to be at from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, the closer to the top. But you always want to go through the spine because you can have a herring right out of a tray. And if you put the hook through the spine, it's got a better chance of staying on the hook, even if you hook it shallow, than if you take a herring and put the hook way deep through meat only on one side.
And the reason people put that hook too deep is they don't trust the firmness of their bait, Phil. And they don't trust the firmness of their bait. They think that if you hook those herring just by a little bit of meat and a little bit of bone, that it's going to blow off. But the way you show on these videos and successful plug cutting techniques, if you go to pro-cure.com, you'll be able to see the whole line of products. And Phil, I thank you so much for joining us. And next time you're in town, I'd love to get you in the studio because that's a given, buddy. That is an absolute given. So, but thanks for joining us this morning, Phil, and we'll be in touch. And thanks again. We appreciate you coming on board as a sponsor of the Outdoor Line Radio program too.
Hey, I'm glad to do it. You know, a lot of those people in Seattle really don't know about Pro-Cure products, and they're missing the boat.
I agree. He's Phil Perrone, pro-cure.com. Phil, thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Bye, bud.
Take care, man. This guy.
We're just digging through their website, and these are products we've all used for our whole fishing lives here. So, you know, it's not a secret to me how well these things work. I mean, the Brine and Bite, all the egg curing products, all the scents. I mean, I was just looking at the garlic scent they have. I used to put that on my sardine fillets. What happens when Chinook get up in the river? They tend to like a garlic scent. Once they've been in the river a little bit, they start to color up just a little bit. That garlic scent on your sardine fillets can just rock them up in the river. And the spring Chinook a couple years ago, once they got up to about 205, the guys were running garlic on their herring, garlic on everything, and they were schwacking springers down there. And you go to Pro-Cure, pro-cure.com, you'll see all this stuff on there. They got everything.
And there's just no question that the farther a salmon gets up the river, the more their bodies change, and so they crave different items. And that's what Phil really has dedicated his life doing is unlocking this code. Well, and he has with a lot of these products.
And he mentioned, the fact that when they get inland, they'll change their preferences a little bit. You get over to the Snake, the Clearwater, some of those rivers over on the east side, they like a lot more sulfites and a lot more salt over there because they're a lot further from the salt, and they're craving that stuff. And definitely, if we use a natural cure for steelhead over here on the west side, which is pretty normal,
pretty common,
a borax-based cure, you get over there, a lot of the guys are on sulfites. And it really helps you on the east side because those fish are craving that stuff. They're a long ways from salt water, and they really want a salty bait with more chemical taste to it over there. And I tell you what, Heller Bar, Clearwater, a lot of those fish, they will chomp down on those baits without any hesitations.
If you're looking for a little Christmas gift here for the sportsman in your family, jump on pro-cure.com. Check out a couple of these DVDs, stuff is stocking with that. In addition, go to theoutdoorline.com. We have T-shirts and hats that you can get for the sportsman on your gift list. So there we go. We'll be right back with the Jet Chevrolet Picks of the Week here in the Outdoor Line, 710 ESPN Seattle.
Fish on! Woo! Take them!
The Outdoor Line Picks of the Week are brought to you by Jet Chevrolet in Federal Way. Nobody beats a Jet deal. Nobody.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Line. Jet Chevrolet Picks of the Week for the dead middle of November. But it ain't so dead. There's lots of stuff to do, even for a guy like you, Rob Ensley.
Even for a guy like me that's actually in the studio today.
Yes. Wow, that's right.
It's pretty rare that I'm here, but I am here. And I tell you what, I'm going to send you a couple different places here. We're probably going to go catch some chums. Those chums are showing up in the South Sound in big numbers right now. Although the Puyallup, we did hear this morning, the Puyallup's been awful slow. But I tell you what, Minter Creek, Chico Creek, Hoodsport, they're all seeing the usual chum infestation down there. There's a few coming in up here, too, on the North Sound. I know the Skykomish are getting some chums. The Skagit is seeing a few. Back down to Southwest Washington, the Satsop has a ton of chums in it right now. The guys that normally back troll for silvers this time of year with quick fish are like, this is kind of getting to be a drag. There's so many chums in there that the guys are having to do some other stuff, throwing spinners and whatnot to get their cohos. Hump Tulips has a bunch of chums in it as well. And then, Nelson, you're going to like this, Blackmouth off Bainbridge Island. And, of course, you got blackmouth up in your neck of the woods, too. They're up in Area 9. But I tell you what, there's pretty good numbers of blackmouth off the east side of Bainbridge right now.
That's true. It's just going to be
Skiff
getting
Point.
to them with this forecast.
The nice thing is it's a southwest wind.
Yeah, and you're protected.
You can tuck up there just a little bit. You can get out of Kingston, some of those boat launches over there. And there are blackmouth in that area. Manchester, I don't know. It might be nip and tuck with that southwest wind.
I'm not sending anybody out on Puget Sound today. Not 25 to 35. And I picked somebody out of the water yesterday, as a matter of fact.
You
so
did,
we're gonna keep people off the Sound. But here's the deal: play the conditions, play the hand that you're dealt, man. You got these winds, you got these lowering snow levels. You got to get in a duck blind, all right? Or late buck blacktail, man.
2 more days. You got
with
today and
lowering
tomorrow.
snow level, okay. There's some tremendous deer in western Washington, but they are a complete pain in the ass to get to.
They're a pain
all right?
in the ass
They
until
are.
right
and
now.
Not as big as a pain in the ass as you are.
Why am I a pain in the ass?
What? We only have 2 hours of this radio program.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time to get deeply into that.
Oh, because I went hunting for a week. Right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the many reasons why I'm a pain in the ass.
But seriously, seriously, with lowering snow levels, and you get some snow, now you get a little something on the ground where you can tell what a fresh track is in western Washington. Doggone it. This weekend is going to be a great time to get your blacktail, okay? With a rut, a little bit of snow, its conditions are absolutely ideal. And then, man, how about going over the coast and trying for one of those early steelhead? There's I don't think the rain is going to hit those rivers so hard. But I tell you what, you and I are heading for Mardon Resort on Tuesday evening. Little goose action on Wednesday. I got to go pick up my Weldcraft Wednesday midday. Come back and duck hunt on Thursday, and here we go.
How about you, Pat?
Fall.
What's your pick of the week?
Pat Fagan, baittheplate.com, okay? Our buddy brought us breakfast this morning. What do you got, man?
I'd be on the Wallace River.
Oh, good call.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be,
good bank fishing spot there.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd be going down to the bridge and float some eggs under a bobber.
Okay.
It gets the last of this coho that are around. And, of course, everyone's still waiting for the first steelhead to show up.
That's where they're going to show up, too, at the Wallace and then up at Reeder Ponds as well.
Yes.
You betcha.
Is it pretty crowded up there, or is it fairly sparse this time of year?
It hasn't been that crowded.
Yeah.
There's plenty of elbow room up there.
That's a great place to fit. I mean, the hatchery's right there.
Park at a bridge and walk on down?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Walk on, and you have to climb through a little brush to find your spot, but there are places there to find yourself a coho, maybe a chum, and hopefully, we're waiting, steelhead.
Hey, there we go.
I just got a text from one of the salty dogs on the Sound that says Nelson is a wussy. We're headed out right now. We're gonna catch fish.
I tell you what,
well, you're a wuss.
I'll own
official.
that. No, I'm going to own that.
It's official.
I'm going to own that because on opening day of elk season, November 1st, I was standing out on a clear cut,
it was blowing 50 miles.
Absolutely lashed. I couldn't see 25 feet because of the sheets of rain standing on top of this ridge. And rain blowing sideways, 40 knots.
I called you, and I was thinking,
you what? I was thinking at that time, how nice the nice warm radio studio would be.
That was a tough day.
So I'll own the wuss call. I will own that. And yes, the new boat will have a heater in it.
Well, these guys did say it laid down over there off Bainbridge. They're launching over there right now. So you might be able to sneak out over there and at least hide behind some of those islands over there. Bainbridge offers at least a little bit of lee over there on the east side of the island.
Now, wait a minute. I don't see that text. You just made up that text to call me a wuss. Yeah, you did.
I didn't make it up.
All right,
it's on my phone. It's ready. You want to see it?
We're gonna investigate the textoid here next on 710. Powered by Everett Outboards. Right back here on the Outdoor Line on 710 ESPN Seattle.
From the shining shores of Puget Sound to your radio, this is the Outdoor Line on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Welcome back to the Outdoor Line, 710 ESPN Seattle. I'm Tom Nelson. That's Rob Ensley, who has been texting the textoid himself with insulting text.
No, I haven't.
In front of our friend
No.
Patrick Fagan, Chef Patrick, bait2plate.com, brought us breakfast this morning. Really kind of opened my eyes to some new salmonic cooking ideas.
That too.
That was tremendous.
Dungeness crab gravy biscuit program.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness,
that was phenomenal.
I wanted to find a way to use that crab at breakfast time.
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. There's crab scrambled eggs, crab deviled eggs.
Too.
Oh man, all that stuff. That's good. I tell you what though, it's the southern part of Puget Sound, as you pointed out, a little more livable today.
There is a gale on the north end there, but boy, you get down in Hood Canal, down inside Puget Sound there, and it's fishable. So boy, the guys they're shoving off this morning. lights coming up out there. I think it's time to go fishing here, Nelson. What are you going to do today? You're boatless, so
I am. So yeah, the wife has very ruthlessly added things onto the
you're building credit
honeydew
right
list.
now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
As am I.
And we have 50 of her relatives, and I mean 50 coming over for an early Thanksgiving that I strategically planned right for the Seahawk game. So right as we serve, it's in front of the game with maybe
Perfect.
a malted beverage.
Good job.
Absolutely. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. It was just fun having you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me in.
Kicking the pants. All right. Well, thanks to Matt Nelson in there. Rob Ensley, it's been up 2 hours.
I think the texter was right. You're a wuss.
I'm Tom Nelson. This has been The Outdoor Line on 710 ESPN Seattle.
Attention outdoorsmen, Washington Arms Collectors holds a series of monthly gun shows throughout the year at the Evergreen State Fairgrounds in Monroe, as well as the Puyallup Fairgrounds. Each